Hello, Katia.
Hi, Diane.
It's so nice to be here on this conversation. So that I tell everybody, I met Katia in November. In San Francisco. My friend, our friend,
Yes.
Simo, who runs Facebook, organized a dinner for women in charge, and it was fascinating. We were about 10 women, I think, maybe more. 10 women in charge, and we all talked about what it means to be in charge, and every one of these women was absolutely fascinating. And Katia was completely fascinating, because Katia, I had never met. You call yourself a coach?
Leadership coach, yeah.
What?
A leadership coach.
A leadership coach. And I had never met a leadership coach before. Mm-hmm. So I would love you to tell us what a leadership coach is, and also, very important, how you became it, because it's very appropriate with what's happening right now in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a leadership coach, and how I work with people is I love to meet extraordinary people and have them tell me what they want to create in the world, where they want to go, what their North Star is. And my role as a leadership coach is to help them get there. I'll put an anchor in the ground into the vision they have, and I help work with their belief structures, their mindset, which is like the glasses through which they see the world, how much energy they have, strategy, growing their power. Those are all things that we work on to get them to their destination.
But give me an example. Who would come and see you? Give me an example, not the name, but I mean, what kind of a person?
So I typically work with startup co-founders who want to bring a vision out in the world, investors that want to have great impact, senior executives like Fiji Simo, for instance. I started working with her when she was the manager, and now she's running the Facebook app. So
in other words, a person who has an executive job would go and see you to help so that they learn how to be a leader, and they can learn how to grow in their career.
So how to be a leader, but my expertise is more along the lines of when there's no map, when it's not a cookie cutter way to get there, and there's a lot of unknown. That's where I'm very comfortable. And so I like to amplify someone's vision. I like to help them identify what gems, what their zone of genius is inside that they've always taken for granted. And so it's almost like giving them an instruction manual for how to be their best self and amplify the vision and purpose they have.
So you really are a professional shrink. I mean, a shrink for professional life. Would you say that?
The difference between a shrink and what I do is there's an amplification. There's, my clients will say that I amplify their ambition. So they end up in situations that are beyond what they thought. And we're very forward looking. And so whereas therapy is more looking at the past, we're really much
okay. And do employers employ you also?
Yes, sometimes employers do. Sometimes the individual does. It's, all over the map.
All right. So since now we live in a very, very odd moment where the world is on lockdown, and where businesses are shutting down, and so many people are losing their jobs and are completely at loss. I think it would be very interesting for you to tell us how you actually got to this job, because I think you became who you are because you lost your own job, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was, at the time, this was back in 2001, and I was the managing director for an investment platform connecting entrepreneurs and investors. And after 9/11 and with the crash of the .com, there was no need for international. So I got laid off. And what happens when you get laid off is there's...
How old were you?
I was 28, 29, around that time. And what happens is there's a currency you have, which is time.
Ooh.
And I decided to.
Before you continue, that is great. So you're saying that time is actually a currency.
Absolutely.
So you're saying what I've been saying now for the last 2 months is that now that we have this forced pause, it's important to take, it's forced upon us, so we have it. So to take the time and really think about things that normally we wouldn't have time to.
Absolutely. I mean, before this, think about where people were at. Time was the most expensive currency, and now there's an abundance of it. And so your ability to...
Sorry.
Yeah, no. And so there's an abundance of time, and that becomes a currency. And how do you want to use it? And it could be, so in my case, what happened is I got very curious about, what is this thing we call execution? How do we get things done? And because back in 2001, and a bit like now, people were just frozen in fear. So I saw really smart people just frozen and not being themselves. And I asked the question, how do emotions impact how we get things done, how we see the world, how we're able to create? And I followed that thread. I call it following the golden thread. And that became my expertise, looking at emotions, mindsets in order to execute a vision. And that's literally how I became a coach.
Wow. So can you give us some specific tips that we should all have? I mean, to deal with fear? How do we deal with uncertainty and with fear?
Right. I mean, that's a really good question. The first thing with regards to, I'm going to separate them out because uncertainty and fear are different. Fear will literally grip you. It's a physiological reaction. You're going to fight, flight, or freeze, which is, people will say things to me like, I'm really tired, I'm not motivated right now, there's a heaviness. And so we have to acknowledge that there's this global collective fear. And so the first part is acknowledging and 100% permission. Yes, this is actually happening and it's a shared experience.
Own it.
Own it. As you always say, own it. Absolutely. Now, once it's owned and you understand that the fear is a reaction and you and the fear are not the same, and you give yourself permission, there's a soothing, there's some space, there's a wedge, and you can expand that. And one of the things that soothes fear is to be creative. You can't be creative and afraid at the same time.
Right. It's funny because my mother used to say, fear is not an option. Yep. And people say, well, that's so easy to say that. But the way I envision it is like, if you take the fear and you throw it in the waste papers basket and you throw it out, it doesn't change the situation. The situation is the same, but you are relieved by the fear. And therefore, the situation is lighter. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely agree. It is lighter because what you're describing is this understanding that you don't have control, but you have choice. So to use the example you shared, you have choice to throw it in the bin. You have choice to decide to, as I often tell my clients, connect back to yourself, find your agency, find your sovereignty, start to think for yourself. These are fundamental things you can do in order to create that wedge and feel lighter. I mean, people will start to feel, I'm feeling, my day feels a little bit better. My emotions were lighter. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, sometimes, I wake up and I just think, oh my God, I have to deal with so many things today. And then you get up and you put your feet on the ground. Mm-hmm. And just the feeling of your feet on the ground is, okay, I'm dealing with this, Yes. And I repeat this over and over, but I really discovered, and I'm much older than you, that the secret of life is really owning it. You own your imperfection, they become your asset. You own your vulnerability, it becomes your strength. And at the end, no matter what happens, the only place really that you can find strength is, I think, in yourself.
Absolutely. And that, to take that back to leadership coaching, part of the power, I call that inner power, is really deeply knowing yourself. And right now we're being forced, there are no more distractions. So we have to go in, and you've probably noticed, or other people watching this at this time, is who you were 4 weeks ago and who you are now is not the same. Every day we're changing because we're going deeper and deeper and deeper. Something you and I spoke of a few weeks ago was, this is like a ceremony of life. We're being forced to go deep. We're being forced to get to know who we really are, our gems, but also our shadow side, and really go deeper there. There is a rebirthing. It's, a lot of people are referring to this as a chrysalis. There is a deep internal transformation.
Right. And I think that if you really go deep into yourself, I think you will be impressed. I think you will like yourself better. And I think it's also not how other people see, how circumstances see. It's really about you. Mm-hmm. And the strongest thing you can do is be more you than you possibly can. Would
Absolutely.
you agree?
I completely agree. And this is what's fascinating. If we take it back to coaching, because you were curious, as I work with people and they become more and more themselves, so people say, gosh, I'm feeling more like myself, all these opportunities open in their life. And so it's really about, and you and I both have a passion for designing life and being very, hands in the clay creating. But when you really get to know yourself and take all of the masks off and be 100% yourself, it's like the movie of your life completely changes. And that's when people say, this is better than what I thought.
At this time of so many uncertainty and companies that, that have to close, and how do you advise people to trust the universe?
That's such a good question.
First, you have to trust you, I guess.
You have to trust you, and what you said earlier about when you get out of bed and you put your feet on the ground and you really feel the earth. There's something, the earth is doing better now. The putting your feet on the ground and really feeling that energy is actually deeply healing right now. And so that's really a place to go first for that initial comfort. And but in times of uncertainty, you first have to find comfort in the moment. A lot of people are saying, I can't tell, is this Friday? Is this, what
I
day?
know. Time is flying.
It sort of blends. And what we need to acknowledge, this is very deep. We're in the now. We're in the now. And moment by moment, to sink into that awareness. So you're right when you say, how do we find grounding and trust in these times of uncertainty, is we go inward and become the anchor. In this moment, everything is okay. In this moment, I'm breathing. Something you also say a lot is gratitude. Yes. What are all the things you're grateful for in this moment?
Right. But going back to losing your job,
yes.
But listen, everything always goes back to my mother. My mother was a prisoner of war. She was in a concentration camp for 13 months. You couldn't be in a worse place. She was in the death camp. And I remember she always said, I was always thankful for the moment. And she survived, clearly, because I was born after. So, and also I think that if you are thankful and you think of others, but what other tips can you give us?
So the ability to have gratitude is a deep one. And when you asked about, there's a question to answer your own question when you said to connect to the universe. A question to ask is, how is this in my favor? What becomes possible now?
Yes.
And it's a challenging question. And it's a question that requires courage. Now is a time of courage, of resilience. Often something I share is the most flexible element in a system has the most power. So can you?
Oh, I like that.
We have to learn those parts of us.
And I think, yeah. And I think if we have, because I've just had the vision of this woman with small children in a small apartment, she loves the job, what do you do with it? I think that as you go for the truth, I think you share this moment with your children. I think truth is always better than not true. Even if your children are small and you want to protect them from certain things, I think it's better to say, this is the situation we're in. We all have responsibility. We all have to take it on, and share that also, even with small children. Do you think so?
Oh, I completely agree. And that was very much the work of Françoise Dolto, the French children's therapist, which is children will always pick up information. They feel it. They feel the emotions. They feel it in their body.
Totally do.
And to lie to a child, even if it's a white lie, is actually quite traumatic. And so when a parent is very clear, very grounded, respects the child enough to meet them exactly where they're at, now expresses it at the language level of the age of the child, but is still telling the truth, that Absolutely. Is the most stable, grounding, comforting thing you can do.
Absolutely. Lying is the most toxic thing. And that's one of the things that I was so lucky that I learned that so early, and I forced it upon my children. I don't think I've ever lied. And I won't accept lies, because lie is, you mostly lie to yourself, and it's already all not good. So no matter what the truth is, take the truth in.
Absolutely. And share it at the level that the person can understand it, but also, again, the energy to say what you were speaking of before is it does become lighter because there's a coherence, there's a harmony. And
I love the word coherence.
I know. it's one of my favorite words.
I love the word coherence. And it's very important that, when you walk into your house, the books in your on your shelves, the food in your refrigerator, what you do, who you're with, who your kids are, that reflects who you are. And the more you are yourself and not try to be something else, the more coherent you are.
And that coherence, again, creates this sort of amplification. People will say to me, gosh, this opportunity showed up out of the blue. I met the right person at the right time for the right opportunity. So this coherence is a form of alignment. And I often say to people, whatever you do, first get in alignment with yourself. Get to know yourself, be in coherence, and then you will notice, you will be able to see the opportunities that are hidden in front of you.
That's right. And trust yourself. And then if you trust yourself, you could trust the universe. And also look at the doors, I mean, there may be a door there waiting for you, and you didn't never liked it, it's not glamorous or whatever, but push that door, and they may be, that's the secret of your life. So I want everybody to remember what you said. Time is a currency. So since now we all have time, how do we use that currency?
Well, there are different ways to think about it. The first thing before, with that currency, what also matters is to be in the right mindset. And so and to answer your question about what can people do now is, I really recommend that people take care of their mindset and their health. And so in this time that they have, to make sure that they move physically. It doesn't matter what they're doing. I know that you walk in nature, whatever your movement is, because it lets the body know that you're alive and vital, and that is key. So you need to do that. You need to be kind to yourself and have emotional energy. And then you need to have mental energy, which is, please pay attention to where you put your attention, right? Mind your mind.
Your intention, you said? Intention.
Your attention. So where are you putting your gaze? Where you're letting your thoughts roam, be like a hawk and bring them back. Once those three things, the physical, the emotional, and the mental, will put you in a place of alignment. From that place, the way you use time as a currency will be at the right altitude. It will have more impact. You will have better ideas. You will feel the impulse of, I need to call this person or read this book, or I always wanted to go deeper on this project and do all the research for it. I mean, that's what I did in 2001. I always wanted to know about emotions. How can I help people? And this is also a time a lot of people are asking, how might I be of service? Now that I have this time, how can I help? What can I give? How might I be in service?
All right, so time is a currency, and we have to align. I also think that we shouldn't go against the river, you know, since the river is pushing us, and this has nothing to do with us. I think we have to go with it and try to see what there is for us. And I think that's also really, really important.
That's absolutely key, because to not push against, but to be with allows again for coherence. And it goes back to, well, how is this in my favor, right? So you want to, a metaphor I often use or analogy is, you know, there's this wave coming. You don't want to go against the wave, but what happens if you align yourself and the power of the wave pushes you forward to where you need to go? And quite frankly, for a lot of my clients right now, what's going on, and again, this is technology, so it's a specific industry, but this has accelerated everybody's roadmap. It's like we're several years ahead. It just forced us into the future. And so that's happening. What does that mean for you if you're leading your own life? What kind of future did this project you into? And people are asking the big questions right now. We always wanted to move outside of the city. I was thinking of shifting jobs. I always wanted to, have a home business. So those things are bubbling up because there's this space for them. And so we want to collect those ideas now.
I think very, very true. And I think one thing that also my mother had taught me is you never know what is good for you until it happens. So sometimes you think that what is happening to you is the absolutely worst thing that could happen. And the truth is that it may not be. And you will look back, and therefore, because you are faced in the situation and you have to own it, and therefore you have to change your life, or you have to change, that will open up another thing. And then you will look back and you say, oh my God, this great thing would not have happened if this didn't happen.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the if life is a game, that's one of the rules of the game. And so what I've told people with what's happening now is, how are you making your future self proud? How in 10 years can we look back and say, because this happened, we created, we invented, we designed, we gave, so that it becomes a turning point. And historically, these big shifts force us to jump a curve into a new evolution, a new advancements, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. And so it's not to put pressure on people, but it's to start giving a gaze, a mindset, a lens through which they can experience the situation. As humans, I think we really need to understand that life isn't always pixie dust, and it's ebbs and flows, and that's how we grow. And so we have to take in the contrast. We have to take in these forced experiences that are like the fire that molds the metal, right?
This is great. So if people want to know more about you, how do they reach you? Is there things they could read?
Sure, yeah. There's they can go to my website, kvaleadership.com, and there's some articles on abundant thinking, the mindset I'm talking about, as well as how to have more energy, because another currency in addition to time is energy. I mean, with more energy and alignment, things are much easier to create much faster.
I remember my Tai Chi, I used to do Tai Chi, and my Tai Chi master told me, is if you focus on energy, no, if you focus on power, you hurt yourself. If you focus on energy, something else not so good happen. But if you focus on intention, you get the energy and the power. Right. So I think that the intention, take time to think about the intention.
Yes, this situation is forcing you to sink in, and if as you settle in and contemplate the intention, and it becomes heavy for you, then that's not the right intention. You're going against the river again. So keep trying, be flexible with your mind. Back to flexibility.
I love this. I love this. We could talk forever.
I know.
but the intention, and you mentioned also the attention, and what I wanted to say about attention is that if you pay attention to small things or to people, your life will be richer.
Absolutely. It's the little, again, I think it's for now we're so grateful for the smallest things, right? And it's in French, the expression, les petits plaisirs du quotidien, right? The little pleasures, the daily little pleasures. And as we start to wrap our day and notice those throughout the day, our mindset, our emotion, our ability to move through what's happening now is very, very different.
Okay, well, Katia, it was lovely to talk to you, and we'll put all your information on the screen so people can reach you.
Yes.
And have a wonderful day. And what is wonderful about you is that you help people to design their lives.
Yes. Thank you, Diane. This was a pleasure.
Bye. Bye.